What up, everyone? Hey, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to Coffee Squad Podcast, episode 6. We got Nate Boyer, former Green Beret, movie star now, pro athlete. I mean, nothing I don't think Nate has done. It's pretty remarkable, man. Little background on Nate. Nate grew up in California. Again, he's a former active duty Green Beret, did multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. After that, he went to the University of Texas as a walk-on football player. After he graduated, he went and played for the Seattle Seahawks for a little while. So pretty awesome. And so what I think is even awesome before that is his history before he became a Green Beret and kind of what you did. You know, you did some rural travels. You kind of dabbled in a little bit, and then you went to Darfur to Sudan and worked in the refugee camps there. And then after that, he joined the Army, became a Green Beret, and I think the rest is history. So after your football career started MVP, we're going to talk a little bit about that. And now he directs movies, stars in movies and TV shows. He's climbed Kilimanjaro. How many times have you climbed Kilimanjaro?
3 times.
Yeah. And does a lot with veterans and just the community in general. So really stoked to have him on. Nate, what did I miss about you? I'm sure I missed a whole lot.
The movie star thing. Definitely not starring in movies, but making them, trying to make them anyway.
There you go. Yeah. You've appeared in them.
You've been in more movies than Jake and I combined, so you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's not say
that. Yeah.
So yeah, man. You know,
we can't talk about Jake's one-legged movies that he used to make. So
you lost me, man.
All right, it's all right. Go ahead.
All right. But yeah, man. So let's jump in, man. Will, what are you drinking today?
So I'm actually drinking Black Rifle Coffee Company Coffee or Die. It's a medium roast. I made a iced coffee with it. So it's one of my go-to blends when I'm just, drinking regular, not really doing anything in the morning. So yeah. What about you, Jake? What are you drinking?
Man, look.
I know you're not drinking coffee, so it's going to be some sparkling water.
I'm drinking a taste of Hawaii again, man. The Alani Nu energy drinks, man. And before you give me crap, there was an article my wife found last night of someone explaining a Starbucks drink, some of this like passion fruit thingy, and they actually said it tastes like Hawaii in a cup. So Nate, there's a little rift between Will and I. He's trying to have me explain what one of my drinks tastes like, and I said, "Hey, it tastes like Hawaii in a cup." And he tried to have me explain it, and you can't really explain Hawaii in a cup. But this person did. If you go to Starbucks website or whatever, look up one of their drinks. It's Hawaii in a cup.
I think that it tastes like tanning oil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the coconut flavor. Yeah. It tastes like paradise in your mouth. So, Nate, you a coffee drinker?
Yeah, I am. I'm not sure what this one is. I know I got my at home with the Robertsons mug. It's the Duck Dynasty folks. I got to go on their show a few weeks ago. And so they sent me a care package with that. Unfortunately, they didn't send any booze, but they sent the coffee mug, so I got coffee in that, which is probably more appropriate 10:15 in the morning where I'm at.
Yeah.
But whatever.
You can't be day drinking if you don't start early, right?
Exactly.
Well, cool. Will normally has like this whole long list. He's a coffee connoisseur and bores everyone on there. So today he kind of tamed it down, which is good. So we can kind of jump in to the meat of you and who you are, and kind of I'd say some of the challenges too that you've kind of come across. So I guess to kick things off, Nate, if you don't mind, just talk to us about your journey, from I guess like your post-high school days to joining the Army, and then going to University of Texas to the Seahawks. Kind of, if you can kind of lump all that up as to what triggered you, why, all that.
Yeah, I like you said, I grew up in the Bay Area. I was a 49ers fan as a little kid. All Bay Area sports teams, really. And then I didn't play football when I was real young because I was playing baseball, I was playing basketball, I was playing soccer. When I was starting to be interested in it, my mom wasn't super keen on it right out the gate. So I didn't play until, much later in life. But by the time I was a teenager and could play if I wanted to, like I said, I was so into those other sports, and I was also worried, like, what if I don't make the team? What if I ride the bench? Like, that's not cool. So I'm not going to play football. And it's something that bothered me for a really long time, actually. It was like a itch I never scratched. And I ended up going down to San Diego after high school. Didn't go to college right away. Went down there, worked on a fishing boat for a while, took some firefighting classes, was interested in maybe doing that. And then it was just like, for me, I mean, I was 18, 19 years old. I just wasn't ready to completely grow up yet. And I was interested in film and TV at that time too. So I came up to LA, not really a lot of direction, or I had drive. I just was misguided drive, and was just kind of partying and doing the young man thing. And then 9/11 happened, and I didn't join the Army right after 9/11. It still took me a few years, but I started doing different things. Started, like, I'd save my money up and go travel, like backpacking in different parts of the world. And eventually that led me to the Darfur in Sudan. I'd read this magazine article about the genocide that was happening there, and these refugee camps that were, becoming overfilled, and how they were understaffed. They just needed people. So I called every NGO, like Doctors Without Borders and Child Fund and Catholic Relief Services, just offered my help, saying, look, I'll volunteer. I'll go over there. I'll fly myself over and help out. And they all told me I couldn't go because I didn't have a college degree or any special skills or anything like that. And I was like, well, I mean, what I'm reading about is how you need people, like, building the camps and, spending time with the kids. There's mostly women and children at these camps, and assisting in the medical centers, like feeding, helping feed people. Like, it was kind of blue collar type stuff that I didn't think a college degree mattered. So I just flew myself over there and kind of figured it out once I got there, and just,
That's awesome.
yeah, it is awesome. And thinking about it now after deploying was so stupid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk about it, right? 18, 19, 20 years old, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere in that time frame. I mean, I can put
I
myself
was actually, by the time I did that, I was 23.
Okay, so still 23. Like,
So grown up.
we think we know everything. We don't have a damn clue what it's like. And then you get shut down, right? And then you're like, you know what, man, I'm just going to go do my own thing. I love that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, brother. Yeah, I'm glad I did it, because it changed my life more than any decision I've ever made. I was only there for a couple of months, but it just completely changed my expectation was going to be, was more like, if I do this and I get something out of that and I feel fulfilled and all these things, like, I'll probably end up, who knows what, like, being some sort of a, working for the Peace Corps or something like that.
Yeah.
The complete opposite of what I did.
Yeah.
But, like, I can't, but I mean, it was over there that I sort of gained my patriotism, but also it was like this realization that people like this need someone to fight for them. And, it was just like these individuals that were just so generous. Like, they have nothing. They wouldn't take anything from me. And they just were so enamored by the fact that an American would leave what we have here to go over there and help out. And, I just was like, they just wanted to hear about the States. That's all they wanted to do. They wanted to just talk about America. And so, and that was a time when this was early 2000s. So it's like 9/11's happened. We're going to Afghanistan. We're soon to be going to Iraq. I think we might have already started to deploy out there. So all of a sudden it went from, that strong patriotism we kind of felt in 2002 to, like, a lot more controversy and division within our country, early stages. I mean, now it's almost 20 years later and it's, like, totally different, another level of that. But these people didn't see it that way. It was like, to them, the United States is like this beacon of hope and possibility, and, a lot of the things that I think it stands for, or at least should. And so I volunteered for a couple of months. My last week there, I got malaria, and this family put me up, took care of me, put me in their, they just had like a mud hut compound situation, and they put me in this room, and there was a radio that they had in there for me. and the only station it got was the BBC. So I was like listening to the Second Battle of Fallujah, happen. And this is in '04. And I'm hearing about the Marines that were going in there, and it's like this play-by-play that's going down. And I just kind of made the decision right there. I was like, when I get back, I'm going to join the military. I didn't know what I was going to do yet in the military, but I made that decision. So I came home, went to a Marine Corps recruiter first. Didn't have a great experience. That guy's bad. And then I was kind of just researching more too, because I was like, what would I actually do? What would be my specialty? And that's when I found out about the 18 X-ray program. And I think it started in '03, I believe, and this was '04. So it'd been around for like a year. And it was, guys that could come in off the street. I think at the time, it wasn't like necessarily a requirement, but most of the guys were at least 21 years old. Some of them had some college experience. You had to score a certain level on the ASVAB, on a psych eval test, language aptitude test, all these little things. And then if you got all that and you got this contract, there's no guarantee, of course. It's like go to basic training, airborne school, pre-selection, and then special forces assessment and selection. And, from the guys in my basic training, I think we had 145 of us that had that 18 X-ray contract. And I think we counted after 145 from our whole basic training battalion. I think 11 of us actually earned Green Berets, which probably was a decent number, but it's like that's less than 10% that signed up. So the rest of them, went to mostly the airborne infantry, 82nd or 101st or something like that. But other jobs as well, needs of the Army, and still like good stuff. But it was a sharp recruiting tool by the military.
So I was an X-ray, and I joined in '04 as well.
Okay.
Very similar story. I didn't do all the cool things you did, but
what do you mean?
Yeah. Oh man, I didn't travel overseas. Like I just felt that need, that desire to go do something. And the Marines turned me down. I had childhood asthma, and so I couldn't join the Marines. I couldn't join the Air Force. And so when Iraq kicked off, I remember like everything, and I remember a Marine killed in El Dorado Hills. And that just it hit me. And so I called the Army recruiter. I'm like, hey, look, man, I'm 25. I just want to do my part. I have childhood asthma. His thing at that time was like, basically, like, what's your criminal record look like? Because they're just, luckily for me, they just needed bodies. But I always look back at that time as, one of the best choices I've ever made in my life to go forward. So,
Yeah, glad it happened. I mean, I probably wouldn't have joined the military at all. Well, I definitely wouldn't have joined the military if I didn't go to the Darfur, and I wouldn't have joined the special forces without that either, because after coming back and, when I started researching it and the special forces motto is "Derecho Liber," which means to be oppressed for those that don't know. And like, so that was just enticing to me already, because I was like, freeing the oppressed, like that's like the most honorable sounding, mission statement or whatever that you can have. And then I was reading about what they actually do, what the Special Forces mission actually is. And one of the biggest parts of it is foreign internal defense, which means, we're training with, we're fighting alongside, sometimes even living with host nationals, people from Iraq, from Afghanistan. And so I just like, that was really appealing to me too, because I wanted to feel like I was a part of that country's growth too, and like what the people actually wanted. And I don't know, I mean, it's a complicated thing, because it's like any place, like people want different things. It's not like this big uniform deal, but especially with us not being at war against Iraq or against Afghanistan, like that's never what it was. Those were our allies. We were fighting terrorism, So it's like that's a complicated part of it, but it was an important part of it, and it helped with my decision for sure. Just that piece of the mission, and we get made fun of that all the time by the other soft jobs. They're like, oh yeah, those guys are basically, I don't even know what they call us.
I always told everyone I was a school teacher with a gun.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, the warrior diplomat thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I mean, it's cool as long as you still get to do the door kicking.
Yeah,
it's a cool part. It's a good piece of the mission. It's important.
Yeah. So you did a few trips, like combat trips overseas, and then can you kind of talk to us about what made you decide, like, okay, I'm going to hang this up. I want to go play football, and I want to go to the University of Texas. Like, how that kind of came into mind.
Yeah, I'd always loved football. And like I said, I never played it. And I remember I was 27 or 28. I think I was 27 when I first started thinking about it. Like, if I did go back to college, I'd want to play. Try and play football, just try out for the team or whatever. And I was in Iraq. And so I was 27, I guess 27 and 28 when I was in Iraq. And I started training over there, like watching YouTube videos, like running routes in the sand out in on our compound. I'd go do it far away from it's just our team out there. It was our 12-man, ODA. So we weren't sharing the base with a bunch of other people, but I'd go find some spot, behind the HESCO barriers where no one could see ridiculous things that I'm doing, trying to like learn how to backpedal and stuff. And I started lifting different. I put on some weight and then came back, and I still had a year left in the military. But when I came back to the States, I knew I had one more trip to Israel, like a JSET, like a 6-week, 8-week trip to Israel. Besides that, we were just doing training back stateside and being stationed in Colorado Springs at Fort Carson. The Olympic Training Center is right down the road. And this place called the NSCA, the National Strength and Conditioning Association. We had a contract with them where they would let us come train there. And so I sort of helped broker that with our team because I was trying to get my team sergeant and captain on board because it was a pretty amazing place. So we worked it out, and we would go down there a couple times a week as a team and do some, more like Olympic lifting and specific training. Well, then I developed a relationship with the place there and told them my plans of trying to play football, the year after I got out. And so they sort of scholarshiped me. They let me come down and use the facilities, kind of Monday through Friday. And I had a strength coach I was working with down there. That he was a strength coach at, his name was Rob Rogers, a strength coach at Baylor, at USC, some pretty big programs and for the football teams back in the day. And I just kept kind of working towards it. And I chose Texas because, I wasn't a Texas fan by any means. I never lived there even, but I'd been to Austin before. It's a great town. But I really wanted to go somewhere with like a historic program from a football aspect that was just like they had this brand recognition that really mattered. And part of it was the challenge of that. But part of it was I just wanted to be around that. I wanted to be around that sort of pageantry of college football and like feel that. So, I picked Texas because it's good to their veterans. Like I said, I loved Austin. The team was really good at the time. When I ended up going there and playing, we were all right. We weren't a championship at all, but I still had a great time. And then Mac Brown being the coach, he was, as many college coaches are, a big supporter of the military. He went over and did a USO trip and visited soldiers overseas. And, I just heard stories about him. I remember being deployed and seeing the Longhorn flag hanging in, you go on like a place like Bagram or, I can't think of in Iraq, I can't think of the dang, the base there in Baghdad, like the big one where anyway, whatever. Doesn't matter. You just see that stuff around. More than probably any other college logo. And so that was part of that decision too. And so Texas was the only place I applied. And when I got in, I just kind of headed out there, went to tryouts during the spring for spring football. And, most of the tryout was just conditioning. They just ran you to the ground. And I had great endurance. I could go forever. I didn't know what I was doing on the field, but like, they're just looking for scout team players at that point. So I was just.
So how was tryouts for you compared to selection as far as like nerves and
not as hard.
Yeah.
Not as hard for sure. I definitely had more nerves at selection. Selection too, you're so isolated except for team week. A lot of what you're doing, it's on your own. It's you,
Yeah.
you alone, and a lot more second guessing, a lot less sleep, a lot more wear and tear on the body.
Food's probably not as good.
Yeah, like training camp is definitely hard, and tryouts, all that stuff's definitely hard. It's harder in the sense of like just from an athlete aspect, the strength and power and speed is just different. Like once I was even on the team, I was 29 years old. The other freshmen were 10 years younger than me, and they were all better athletes. And that's pretty humbling. You know what I mean? But also there's only so much I could do to sort of hang with them. As much as you train, I was never going to be fast enough, at least me, to play safety at that level. Right. And that's where I walked off with safety. So after that first year of, being on the team and I got to suit up for home games when we were blowing out Texas Tech on Veterans Day. Of course, they had to put the veteran in the game. So they put me in to run down on kickoff coverage. And, it was awesome. Like I definitely caught the bug, just that one play. I was like, I got to find a way on the field. So that's when I discovered long snapping as an opportunity for me, because it's a thankless job. It is a special skill, but I equated it to learning how to shoot a pistol. I didn't know how to shoot a pistol when I joined the military. I don't even think I'd ever done it. And I ended up being pretty good. And it's because I just put a lot of the time in, and it was less about natural athleticism and more about repetitions and, just muscle memory and practicing things the right way over and over and over again. It was sort of the same with long snapping. It's like shooting a free throw. To me, there's no excuse for any NBA player to be a 50% free throw shooter. I don't care who you are. Like, if you just do it a lot, like it's a closed skill. It's the exact same every time. Like nothing changes. The ball's the same size, the hoop's the same size, the same distance. I know there's factors and nerves or whatever, but like everybody in the NBA should be at least a 70% free throw shooter. Like, come on. So it was the same kind of thing with the long snapping. Like once I figured out how to throw a spiral, and I figured out how to sort of get a little more speed on the ball. I mean, I guess the only kind of athleticism you really need with that naturally would be arm strength. Like you have to have decent arm strength. But I mean, I can't throw a football 50 yards. Quarterbacks throw it 70 yards, and I can't even throw it. Yeah, I can throw it maybe 40 something. So I don't have a super strong arm. But when you're snapping it, you're snapping at 15 yards between your legs, and it's got to be on a line, but it doesn't have to be the fastest thing in the world. As long as you throw a very accurate changeup every time to the punter, like you should be able to handle it. And then same with field goals and extra points, and then just get in the way. Don't get the kick blocked on your account. That's your main duties. Get run over with dignity, as my coach was.
Love it.
So, that was really it. So once I kind of got that down, I tried out for the position that next year. I was in the Texas National Guard at the time, so I was still getting deployed. I was going overseas every summer for about 3.5 months. So I practiced overseas as well. But when I came back, Mac let me try out for the position, and I earned the backup job during training camp. I think we started with like 10 of us on the depth chart at long snapper, and then people started weeding themselves out. And I was just staying consistent. So I got all the way up to the backup. And then in the first game of the season, the guy that was a starter had a couple of not great snaps, and I got the opportunity the next week and held the job for 3 years.
Nice.
So that's just sort of how that happened. It was like an opening, the starter from the year prior was graduating, and I was like, well, that's one of the few positions that I could maybe start at, and I wanted to play meaningful snaps. So
what a great story, of just kind of determination, chasing the dream. To me, it's like that American story, right? Absolutely loved it. I remember reading about it, watching you carry the flag, both at UT and with Seattle. And to me, it's like awesome Green Beret right there, right? So I think it's a great story. And then, if you can kind of talk about, I kind of want to talk about, and we don't have a ton of time, so kind of want to skip forward a little bit about, MVP, merging vets and players, and then kind of what led to that too. So if you kind of want to back up to kind of what led to that. And I guess, the whole Kaepernick situation. I know it's a touchy situation, but I think it's an important situation too. And did that situation lead to MVP? And kind of talk just about that scenario and where it's at today.
Yeah. So as far as MVP goes, I was at UC, finished off playing there, and like I said, I was in the National Guard at that time, and so those things sort of ended at the same time. I finished my enlistment in spring of 2015. Fall of 2014 was my last football season in college, and I get to play in the Senior All-Star game, which was really cool. It was a Medal of Honor Bowl, actually. Medal of Honor Society sponsored this bowl game, and it was a Senior All-Star game. And I went out and played in it, and there was a bunch of NFL scouts there. I wasn't very big, and I was certainly by far the oldest person there, but I had 4 teams that were somewhat interested in, what I could do as far as a long snapping position. Then the NFL draft rolls around, and I get offers from St. Louis, the Rams, and the Seattle Seahawks to come into training camp, sign as a free agent, and at least get a shot, which was incredible. So I picked the Seahawks because they'd been to back-to-back Super Bowls, even though they were the rival of the 49ers, my favorite team. But it just made the most sense, man. And I couldn't turn down that challenge. And as long as it lasted, that was just, there was something about that. I think it would have bothered me if I wouldn't have risen to that, to that level and just went for it with the Hawks.
Well, just the opportunity to play college ball and then pro ball. What's the percentage? We're talking less than 5%, less than 2%, probably somewhere in there. I don't know the numbers, but that's a very small percentage.
Yeah. So
I'm going to do it at 29.
Yeah. Well, no, it's 34 then when I was.
Holy crap. Yeah. Yeah. Guys are wrapping up their career. If they even make it that long, they're lucky to go there.
Well, I was the oldest guy on the team as a rookie, which is hilarious. But so I went out there, went through OTAs, went through training camp, got to play in one preseason game. Then at that next round of cuts, it was just my time. But I did great, the game that I played in, and just to have that shot. I mean, we played the Denver Broncos in Peyton Manning's last season, and the Broncos went on to win the Super Bowl that year. And so I just remember, warming up before the game, and it's like I'm playing with Marshawn Lynch and Richard Sherman and Russell Wilson and all these guys, and Peyton Manning's 5 yards away from me while I'm warming up long snap, and he's throwing passes, and it was just such a surreal moment. And so before the game, they asked me, the team manager asked me if I wanted to lead the team out of the tunnel with the American flag, because in college I did that for every game. That was something that Coach Brown asked me to do, and they'd always had family members of veterans do that in the past. But since I was actually a veteran, I did that for every game in college, and then the one game in the NFL, I did that as well. So I ran the team out of the tunnel, and then right before the game starts, they start playing the national anthem on the field there. And in college, we're in the locker room when they play the anthem. So this was sort of a different experience for me. And so I find the tallest flag in the building, and I face it and I put my hand on my heart. I didn't salute. Put my hand on my heart, and the song starts playing, and I just started bawling. I was it's just a really emotional moment because of everything that was going on, but also a symbol, means something to me because of my experiences. And that ended, I'm crying. All these guys Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor and Michael Bennett and all the dudes from the team are coming up hugging me, and
that's freaking awesome, man.
Yeah, it was cool. It was really cool. So, like I said, played in that game, ended up getting released, and I come back home, and within the next day, 2 opportunities. One was Water Boys, where we do the Kilimanjaro climb every year with Chris Long and his foundation with vets and former NFL players. We climb Mount Kilimanjaro and raise money for clean water wells. That opportunity came up the next day. Chris called me and was like, "Man, I've been following your story. I'd love you to be involved in my organization." So that was one thing. And then just, shortly after that, weeks after that, in conversations I was having with Jay Glazer, who helped train me to get that opportunity in the NFL, he was like, "Man, I want to start a foundation that helps veterans and former athletes." Because we had talked before about the similarities in the locker room and the camaraderie and the loss of the uniform when you're in your 20s and 30s and feeling like you'll never be great again. Like all those things are the same. There's not a lot of professions out there that you kind of peak in your 20s, These are two of them. And so it was, and also they're very, there's high stakes. They're different. Of course, it's not life and death playing a sport, but it matters. It's an important piece of our society. And, it's a very, very American thing is like competitive professional sports,
Yeah.
So MVP sort of came from that. And it was like, how do we recreate this locker room, bring these guys together and, help them feel that sense of purpose again when the uniform comes off. Just like I felt when I went from military to football, it was nice to have that locker room again. So, so I had that. And then, fast forward even a little further later in 2016, it's like we're in the middle of an election cycle, and that was Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, kind of the start of this really peaking divisiveness that we've experienced over the last few years. And hopefully that's going to start to diminish now. Wow, we'll see. But, it's tough, man. It's tough. I think as a veteran, no matter where you stand, if you lean left or lean right, it's like, it's frustrating to see people just constantly fighting and arguing and not listening. And, that was the most frustrating thing to me. It's like when I took the oath to defend the Constitution, it's to defend everybody. And it's to defend those amendments. And the First Amendment is freedom of speech. And, as it pertains to Colin Kaepernick, that's right around when this was almost exactly a year later after the one game I played in. He had started sitting on the bench protesting during the national anthem, not protesting the anthem itself, but during the national anthem, protesting, against police brutality and racial inequality, social injustice, and things he felt really strongly about. And he got a lot of flack for it. He had a lot of people supporting him too. But I got reached out to by CNN and Fox News and but a lot of political, media, cable news networks and outlets. And they wanted me to come on and probably argue with somebody about why he's right, why he's wrong. It's all about just making good TV. And I was like, I don't want to do that. It's not going to help anything. So I finally agreed to write this open letter through the Army Times just about my experiences and why I feel the way I feel. But it was addressed to Colin, just saying, hey, look, I'm not going to pretend to know what it's like to be you. But this is why these symbols mean something to me, because of my experience. And but at the end of the day, what you're doing, what you're saying, it's important stuff too. So I hope things change, and I look forward to the day that you're willing to stand again. I'll be standing right there next to you. And Colin, a lot of people read it. It kind of went viral, and Colin ended up reaching out to me and said he wanted to meet. So I met with him a couple of days later down in San Diego before their final preseason game. And we talked about, like I said, our experiences. We talked about how we're similar in a lot of ways. And, he told me at the time too, I got a great respect for men and women in the military, and also, those in law enforcement that do it the right way. And it's just like when people aren't being held accountable, this is kind of the only way to raise eyebrows and attention. And he understood how divisive that moment was. And a lot of people are like, well, why does he have to pick that time to do it during the anthem? And I'm like, because of the conversation we're having right now. It's not comfortable, and I don't want him to do that. I'm not like, protest during the anthem, but
you got a lot of flack for that.
Oh yeah, I got a ton.
And so
maybe I deserve it, and I'm fine with it. It doesn't bother me. For me, what's more important is what are we doing to fix the problem? And if as long as that's happening, people got upset with me for just meeting with them, though. You're right.
Yeah. I mean, even people within the community, right? In the soft community.
All the disgrace to the Green Beret.
Yeah. And to me, it's I'm looking at your picture right now of you standing there with your MVP shirt on, with your hand over your heart during the national anthem, and Colin is taking a knee right next to you.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go political here. There's too much, like you said, there's too much political devices, and it doesn't matter. I'm not going to change anyone's mind. You're not going to change anyone's mind over a podcast or even a conversation or over social media. But what I think you did, there standing and saying what you said, I think to me it opened up the aperture, I think, of soldiers and police officers. Like, this is why we fight. We don't have to like it. We don't have to agree with it. But this is why we fight. And so, it's a lot of controversy, right? I'll probably get crap for it right now saying this, on my podcast.
Important for people to understand if they don't know is like he was sitting on the bench by himself, sort of isolated from his team, doing his own thing for 2 games during the anthem. And through our conversation, he actually asked me, is there another way you think I can protest that's not going to offend people in the military? And I said, no matter what you do, if you're not standing with your hand on your heart facing the flag, some people are going to be offended. And they're probably still going to be offended for the rest of their lives because you already did it. So like if you're looking for a perfect protest or perfect whatever, there is not one. But if you're looking to make a change or do something different, I think at least for some people, if they understand where this is coming from, if you're willing to be alongside your teammates, that's important symbol. And he said, but I'm committed to not standing. I'm not going to stand, until I see things change. And I was like, well, I think the only other option that makes sense would be to take a knee. I said, I think that's more respectful than sitting on the bench, like sitting it out. I don't speak for anybody but myself. I don't speak for the military or the vet community, by any means, and I've never said that I do. But I thought that was, at least it would be a good adjustment, if he's willing to do that. And I said, if you're willing to do that, he thought it was a good idea. He thought it was actually more powerful than what he was doing. I said, if you're willing to do that, I'll stand next to you, when the anthem's played. And here's the thing, and he did that, and we did that, and it was great. And there's plenty of things before I met him and since that I don't agree with, that he says and stands for and posts. Like, I just don't agree with everything. It's okay. It's like, I don't have to. It doesn't, just because I stood next to him and had a conversation, it doesn't mean that I'm like just pro everything that anybody does or says.
Yeah. I mean, I'm married for 12 years, almost 13. I don't agree with everything my wife says, right? Or does, and she doesn't agree with everything I say or do either. And I look at the media and how the media twists and pushes everything to their narrative. And there's, I've heard numerous stories of Colin writing checks to Pee Wee football leagues and like wanting it done anonymously. And so sometimes I think people just want to focus on the negative, not the positive.
I know me personally, I'm a vet and a retired police officer. So when it first happened, I was like, what the heck, man? But then I started reading it after your letter and stuff like that. And I was like, what you said makes sense. It doesn't matter if I agree with it or not. That's his right to do it. That's why I joined the military, was to protect everybody's First Amendment right, And so I definitely like the way you went with that direction.
Yeah, I thought it was, to me, it just made me more proud of you, man. And like being a Green Beret, right? Like, here's a silent professional, and he's not sitting there. I think it's a story of your life, man. That to me just
quiet, not silent.
Yeah, quiet professional.
Quiet. Did I say silent?
Yeah.
Oh,
my bad.
Silent, I wouldn't have said shit.
Yeah. The quiet professional, right? You did it behind the scenes. You weren't, but I think your whole life has kind of been that, right? You've always just you've paved your own path. And I think it's led to so many wonderful things. The MVP, everything that you're doing out there to raise awareness, for veterans and players, and I think just being a good human being at the end of the day. So I kind of want to.
A lot of the things that I love to do and love to pursue are very public things. So in some ways, there's like, when you're talking about trying to play sports at a high level or trying to work in film and television, like I just directed my first movie. All these things are my passions, but it's like with that, those are very public things. Like, people see what you create, you see what you do. There's really, I'm not gonna say there's no way to stay out of that, but with that comes like a platform. And then in some ways I feel responsible to like utilize the platform, and obviously not everyone's going to agree with my choices and how I utilize that platform. Trust me, because it can be with anything. And as everybody does that has this opportunity, you get people that just I just want to rip you apart or say, oh, you're a spotlight ranger or whatever it is.
Yeah.
All right, man, fine. That's
So I want to talk about that, right?
Let's talk about people out.
Let's talk about that. I mean, I follow you on Instagram, right, and social media, and there's a lot of just haters out there and just mean. I want to say the A word, a-holes out there. But
that can be.
It's yeah. I mean,
who can't?
I am one, but to me, it's how when this whole Kaepernick thing kind of blew up, right? And you said your piece and you've done your thing. How did that affect you? Like, were you concerned for your safety? Were you getting threats? How did that happen?
I never felt genuinely fearful of almost all those threats were through social media, for the most part. I had I emails too, but it's all through the interwebs, man. It wasn't I've literally never met a person face to face. I had people that I met face to face that disagree with me and thought, man, I don't agree with your stance, and that's totally fine. But it was every time that's been a civil conversation. I've never had somebody to my face say the types of things or react in the way that you have through social media. And so
a keyboard warrior come out.
Exactly. And on the flip side of that, I've actually had a lot of people that initially, did some stuff like that, and then have reached back out and said, that their tune has changed in some way. And that's really cool to see too. And it's not because of anything that I did. It's just they had time to think about it and process it and kind of hear other viewpoints. And I think this last year with the George Floyd stuff and the protests that happened after that, that changed a lot of people's mind. And I think a lot of it was because they didn't realize how many people felt this way. So, yeah. And I still I'm very in the middle. I would consider myself, I'm not, I think the two-party system is a terrible thing.
Yeah. So, all it does is divide, puts two lines in the sand. And I've always said, man, we try not to get political on the show a whole lot, but when the elections were happening last year, I made the point in my neighborhood of if you watch the news, I don't care if it's Fox News or CNN, I just picked those two because those are probably the two most famous on the left and the right there.
Right.
But my neighborhood around Halloween, we all got together, and I knew people who were on the left. I know people who were on the right and people in the middle. And guess what? There wasn't one argument. There wasn't one fight. There was conversations as to why, but no one had. If you look at Fox News, you would think that everyone hated each other. If you look at CNN, the same thing. Just opposite sides. So I think the media and social media, these damn phones.
It's the digital age, man. It's I constantly push it to people, and I understand there's so many benefits to this technology that we have. Of course, things are so much easier, accessible, the way we can connect with people that we would never connect before, opportunities, absolutely. But if we don't have a big part of our lives that still includes face-to-face interaction and look at somebody's eyes and having a conversation and actually listening to them and giving them a moment and not only just listening to them, considering what they say and trying to understand where it's coming from, truly understand, then we're not going to get any better. So hopefully that's happening. I think if anything, the isolation that COVID brought us, and the release of that now, where we're getting back out there and seeing people, hopefully that'll help bring us together as well. Sometimes you need those things, as heartbreaking as they may be.
I agree.
Disasters bring people together like nothing else.
Oh,
yeah, I agree. You see people craving. And that's the word I like to use, is that craving, that interaction. So I know you don't have a ton of time, Nate. I want to talk about MVP. Tell us what it is.
MVP it stands for Emerging Vets and Players. We bring together combat vets and former professional athletes and help them find purpose, service, identity, that camaraderie, the locker room when the uniform comes off. I mean, like I was saying earlier, those careers, they feel like they end pretty young as compared to many, and feeling like you've peaked at such a young age is a tough thing. I mean, Tony Gonzalez is a member of ours, 17-year tight end, probably the greatest tight end of all time. First ballot Hall of Famer. And he came in and joined us one day and was sitting down and saying the toughest part for him was just knowing that he'll never be great again, even though he had this broadcasting career and whatever he wanted at his fingertips. You know, he made plenty of money, beautiful family, like everything's quote unquote great, but it wasn't. And that was just that was really interesting to hear, you know, from him, because I know I've heard that veterans say the same thing often. And then someone like Randy Couture to say, you know, the 6-time heavyweight champion of the world, and he was a veteran too, in MMA and the UFC, to say like his biggest regret and why he feels like a failure is he never made the Olympic wrestling team. You know, it's like everybody has those things. I don't care who you are, and we're always going to feel like it. Part of us is like, I could have done more. It wasn't enough, and I know veterans feel that all the time, whether it's from survivor's guilt or whatever. And so, just bringing these groups together and that mutual respect they have, it's been pretty powerful to see it help with all of us transitioning, whether it's, you know, 10 days after you got out or 10 years. And yeah, we got 6 chapters open now. We're about to open our 7th in Dallas in the next month or two. And we're continuing to grow and change. And yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I think it's awesome. You know, when I was in, I said, look, I hardly ever wore a uniform, never wore the Green Beret, hardly ever. And I said, it didn't make me who I am. I don't define myself as a Green Beret or as a soldier. That's what I said when I was in. Looking back, I was full of crap, man. That was my life. Just, I think, like a college player or pro athlete, to be at that level, it has to be your life. And so to say that it's not who you are, at least for me, I was fooling myself. And so when I hung it up as pretty abrupt, I struggled. You know, it was a struggle. It was almost like an identity crisis of, here I was up here, and now who am I? What am I? Yeah, I'm a father, I'm a husband, and that was great, and I love being it. But re-identify who I was. Luckily, you know, I went and worked with a bunch of former soft guys, so that definitely helps. But I love what you're doing, man. I love MVP. I love everything that you're doing, and kind of who you are and what you're standing for. So thank you. Thanks for doing it.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on.
And I know you just finished up the MVP movie, and you're editing that now, so that's going to be cool.
We're in post-production right now. It's about the genesis of MVP. It's essentially about a veteran, a Marine veteran who's living in a homeless shelter on Sunset Boulevard. This was a real place that used to exist until last fall, but it's a shelter in LA that it was all vets, almost all Iraq and Afghanistan vets, actually. And he meets an NFL player. It's his first year out of the league. And on paper, these guys have nothing in common, but they're going through the exact same thing. So, yeah, hopefully that thing's done and we can kick it out there by the fall or winter. You know, we're looking at film festivals and stuff like that right now. But, yeah, it's a pretty special project.
Awesome. Can you tell everybody where they can find you if they want to follow you or anything like that?
Yeah, on social media, at Nate Boyer 37 on Twitter and Instagram. And then I have a website, nateboyer.com as well. And if you want to learn more about MVP, you can go to vetsandplayers.org. If you are a combat vet or a former professional athlete, you can become a member.
Awesome. Well, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. I think it was a great conversation.
Thank you guys.
You know, I know you're super busy, so appreciate you taking some time out of your super busy schedule.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. Totally awesome. Appreciate it, dude.
Appreciate y'all.
All right. Catch y'all next week.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.